Have you ever heard of a love story so forbidden, so dangerous, that it led to the destruction of the world? Sounds dramatic, right? But this isn't just some tragic romance novel. It actually happened. The Book of Enoch tells us about the women who fell in love with celestial beings, unknowingly setting off a chain of events that would lead to the Great Flood. But what happened to these women after the waters receded? Well, let's just say their fate was far from a happily ever after. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Divine Verses Unmasked, where we reveal the hidden truths behind ancient scriptures, Bible mysteries, and divine revelations that most people have never heard. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You won't regret it. These weren't just handsome strangers passing through town. They were flawless, almost too perfect to be real. Their skin shimmered like moonlight on still water. Their eyes burned with the intensity of 1,000 stars. And their voices, oh, their voices, were like the melody of the cosmos itself, resonating deep into the souls of those who heard them. When they smiled, the earth itself seemed to hold its breath, and when they whispered promises of devotion, time stood still. But these weren't ordinary men. They weren't men at all. They were fallen angels, celestial beings who had abandoned their place in the heavens for something forbidden, something intoxicating, human love. They didn't come seeking mere companionship. They came to bind themselves to human women, to create something that had never been meant to exist, something that would shake the very foundations of heaven and earth. At first, the women were powerless to resist. These beings were everything they had ever longed for. How could they turn away from lovers who knew their every thought before they even spoke? Who could awaken emotions so deep and fierce that they felt as though they had been blind their entire lives and were now seeing the world for the first time? The fallen angels didn't just love, they worshipped, adored, and elevated their chosen ones to heights no human man ever could. But as with all things that shine too brightly, there was a shadow lurking beneath the surface. The more time these women spent in the embrace of the fallen, the more they changed. Their beauty became haunting, their features almost too exquisite to be natural. Their eyes, once filled with innocence, now gleamed with an otherworldly wisdom, one that saw too much, knew too much, and desired even more. They no longer thought as mere mortals did. The concerns of common folk seemed beneath them. Ordinary men, dull, mundane existence, stifling. They had tasted a forbidden fruit, and they could never go back. But the gifts of the fallen were not without consequence. With their newfound knowledge came an insatiable hunger, one that could not be satisfied by mortal means. The world around them seemed too small, too fragile. Their laughter, once sweet and carefree, now carried an eerie echo, a sound both mesmerizing and terrifying. The love that had once seemed like a divine blessing now bore the weight of a dreadful curse. And still the fallen angels whispered to them in the dark, their silken voices promising more. More power, more understanding, more dominion over the mortal realm. They spoke of a future where they would reign, where their children, born of both heaven and earth, would reshape existence itself. But what the women did not yet understand was that they had been woven into a story far greater than themselves, a story of defiance, of forbidden love, of a rebellion so great that even the heavens trembled, and the price of such love, that had yet to be revealed. For once the veil between heaven and earth is torn, nothing can ever be the same again. If you thought angel-human marriages were dangerous, just wait until you hear about their children. The Nephilim weren't ordinary offspring. They were giants, both in stature and in appetite. Imagine a child throwing a tantrum, but now make that child the size of a house with the strength of an army. Frightening, isn't it? These hybrids carried the raw power of their angelic fathers, but were ruled by the unchecked emotions of their human mothers. When they walked, the earth quaked beneath their feet. When they hungered, entire villages vanished overnight. At first, the women who bore them were enchanted. They marveled at their children's supernatural abilities, their otherworldly beauty, and their towering strength. They believed their sons were destined for greatness, that they were meant to rule over mankind, and for a time they did. The Nephilim were worshipped as gods, their presence striking awe and terror into the hearts of men. They built kingdoms, waged wars, and reshaped the land itself. But power without restraint is a dangerous thing. The Nephilim knew no limits, no compassion, no respect for life. They took what they wanted, devoured what they pleased, and destroyed whatever lay in their path. Their hunger was insatiable, their wrath uncontrollable. They had inherited the might of the heavens, but none of its wisdom. As their destruction spread across the world, fear and despair took hold of the people. The cries of the suffering reached beyond the realm of men, ascending into the heavens. The celestial order had been watching, and they were not pleased. What had been done in secrecy, in defiance of divine law, could no longer be ignored. Judgment was coming. The fallen angels had acted against the will of the Most High, and their punishment would be severe. But what of the Nephilim, these monstrous children of rebellion? Were they beyond salvation, or were they doomed to share in their father's fate? The heavens stirred and the earth trembled. A reckoning was near, and soon the world would witness the wrath of the divine. Up in the heavens, God had seen enough. His once perfect world had become a nightmare of corruption and despair. The harmony he had woven into creation was now drowned in chaos. Darkness prowled where light once ruled. His beloved humans, created in his own image, cowered in fear, hiding in caves, fleeing into the mountains, whispering desperate prayers as monstrous shadows stalked them through the night. The earth groaned under the weight of bloodshed and sin. This was no longer the world he had fashioned with love and divine purpose. It was an abomination. And so, heaven answered. The heavens trembled as 4 divine warriors stepped forth: Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. These were no mere messengers, no bringers of tidings and blessings. They were the mightiest of God's host, forged for war, radiant with power. Their descent to earth was not gentle. It was a celestial storm, a roar of light and fury tearing through the sky. The ground quaked beneath their feet as they beheld the horror before them. The Nephilim, the children of fallen angels and mortal women, were unlike anything the world had seen. They were titanic, stronger than any beast, faster than any man, and more cunning than the wisest of kings. Their bodies were etched with the markings of their unholy lineage. Their eyes glowed with unnatural fire. They were the offspring of both heaven and rebellion, powerful beyond measure, and they ruled the earth with iron fists. The battle that followed shook the foundations of the world. The clash of divine and corrupted blood sent shockwaves through the land. Michael, the warrior of God, wielded his flaming sword against these giants, cutting through them with blinding speed. Gabriel, the herald, moved like the wind, striking with an unseen force that shattered bones and cast down the proud. Uriel, the flame of God, burned with the fury of righteousness, raining holy fire upon the abominations. Raphael, the healer, moved like a specter of judgment, striking with precision, ensuring no monstrosity would rise again. Yet even the archangels faced adversity unlike any before. The Nephilim did not fear them. They did not cower before divine authority. They roared in defiance, wielding their own unnatural strength against the might of heaven. They fought with the fury of fallen blood, with the arrogance of beings who believed themselves untouchable. The earth trembled beneath their struggles, mountains cracked, rivers ran red with the cost of war. But God had seen the depths of depravity. He had seen the relentless cycle of corruption, the way darkness clung to mankind even after the battles. He knew that a war alone would not cleanse the world, and so he revealed his final decree: a flood. The sky darkened. Thunder rumbled like the voice of judgment itself. The heavens split open and the rain began. It was not the gentle blessing of life-giving water. It was an ocean descending from above, an unrelenting torrent meant to sweep away the filth of the world. The rivers rose, the valleys drowned, and the mountains became islands amidst the vast churning waters. Heaven had struck back, not just with sword and flame, but with a force beyond mortal comprehension, a divine reset. And from the depths of devastation, a new beginning would rise. You know that eerie stillness before a storm? That moment when the wind dies down and the world holds its breath? Now imagine that silence stretching over the earth, thick with impending doom. Then, without warning, the sky cracked open. Black clouds churned like a tempest of ink, swallowing the sun and casting the world into a deep, unnatural twilight. The first drops fell, cold and heavy, like the weight of judgment itself. Then came the downpour, not gentle showers but an unrelenting deluge, as if the heavens had been ripped apart. Thunder roared, splitting the air with divine fury. Lightning danced across the sky, illuminating the horror to come. The waters rose faster than anyone could comprehend. Valleys vanished first, swallowed whole. Rivers turned into raging monsters, devouring forests and villages. Cities crumbled as walls softened like wet sand. People fled to the highest hills, but the flood pursued them, rising with unstoppable purpose. The Nephilim, those giants, those warriors, those sons of fallen angels, who once towered over humanity, feared by all, now faced an enemy they could not crush. Their strength, once their greatest weapon, meant nothing against the endless tide. They ran, they roared, they fought the waters, but their power was useless. The mountains they had once looked down upon became their last desperate refuge. But the flood did not stop. It climbed higher, higher, until there was nowhere left to run. Mothers screamed for their children as the waves took them, their cries drowned beneath the storm's relentless fury. The daughters of men, who had once basked in the love of celestial beings, now wept as they watched their hybrid children slip beneath the waves. There was no rescue, no mercy, only judgment. And the fallen angels, the ones who had descended from heaven in defiance, who had taken for themselves the daughters of earth and taught mankind forbidden secrets. Their fate was worse than death. As their offspring perished, as their lovers wailed, they themselves were seized, bound in chains, shackled by divine decree. They were cast into the abyss, locked away in darkness, their cries echoing into nothingness. They who once defied the heavens now trembled in the face of divine justice. For 40 days and 40 nights the rain did not relent. The world that had once been filled with laughter, with music, with the arrogance of men and the pride of angels, was now silent beneath the waters. All that remained was the endless sea, and atop it, alone in the vastness, a single ark, drifting toward a new beginning. The flood was not just destruction, it was a reckoning. It was a reset, a cleansing of corruption, a rewriting of history. What would rise from the waters would be a new world, shaped not by fallen angels and wicked men, but by the hands of the righteous. But would humanity remember? Or would history once again repeat itself? You'd think surviving the flood was a blessing. After all, the waters had wiped away the wickedness of the world, cleansing the earth of its corruption. But for the wives of the fallen angels, survival was not mercy. It was a torment beyond comprehension. Their celestial husbands were gone, shackled in the abyss. Their children, the Nephilim, who once towered over men as gods of the old world, had perished beneath the waves. The world they had once danced in, a world where they were revered, feared, and envied, was no more. Only the endless sea remained. The silence was deafening, the loneliness suffocating. Some of the women collapsed in grief, their cries rising to the heavens like broken hymns. They tore at their garments, sank to their knees, and begged for forgiveness. But others refused to yield. Take Nama, for example. Proud, beautiful Nama. She had once walked with an air of divinity, her every step echoing with power. The Nephilim had knelt before her. Men had worshipped her. Even angels had abandoned heaven for her touch. And even now, in the wake of divine wrath, she would not bow. She would not repent. She stood at the water's edge, her reflection distorted in the shifting tide. What was repentance to a queen? What was humility to a goddess? She had once commanded hearts, ruled over destinies. She would not crumble now. But divine justice is not something one can defy. The unrepentant wives were given a fate far worse than death. Their punishment was not a swift end, but an eternal curse, one that twisted their very essence. They who had once been seduced would now become the seducers. Their beauty did not fade. No, it became something unnatural, something otherworldly, dangerous and intoxicating. Their voices, once soft whispers to forbidden lovers, turned into melodies so haunting, so irresistible, that no man could hear them and live. They became sirens, cursed creatures bound to the waters that had taken everything from them. Where once they had walked in palaces, now they swam in the abyss, calling out to sailors with songs woven from sorrow and longing. The men who heard them could not resist, drawn by an unseen force, mesmerized by voices that promised love, ecstasy, and secrets beyond mortal reach. But the promise was a lie. Those who followed their song found only ruin, ships shattered against jagged rocks, souls lost to the depths. But the worst part, the true agony of their fate, their fallen angel husbands could feel it. Shackled in the abyss, they could sense the suffering of the women they had once cherished. They felt their cries, their loneliness, their regret. They knew what had become of them, knew that their love had doomed them to this cursed existence. And yet, they were powerless to stop it. That was the ultimate punishment, an eternity of separation, an eternity of pain. They had reached for heaven and lost everything. Now they could only watch, helpless, as the women they had adored became the instruments of destruction. The flood had not only cleansed the world, it had rewritten destiny. The world was wiped clean, but the scars remained. The archangels became watchmen, ensuring that such a disaster would never happen again. But there's one story you haven't heard yet, a battle between two of the most powerful beings in existence, Michael and Lucifer. And what were they fighting over? Moses' body? Yeah, you heard that right. Want to know why Lucifer wanted Moses' body so badly? Or what made Michael so furious that he had to personally fight Lucifer himself? Click on the next video because this is one Bible story they definitely didn't teach you in Sunday school. And don't forget to share this video. Someone out there needs to hear this. Let's unmask the hidden verses of the Bible together.